Well, I know what you're thinking. Is he going to forget to turn on his microphone again? You saw me just cheat and look to make sure that I hadn't. Welcome back. It's a pleasure to look you right in the eye yet again. It seems like a very long time, and though it's only been a week. Obviously, I'm on vacation. I'm outside. I have my hat on. I've discovered a lot in the past week. One of them is how easy it is to acquire the famous virus. So, my friends, yet again, love one another, stick together by staying apart, and for gosh sake, wear a mask. Now, it's only fair that I tell you, I lied to you last week. I did. I didn't mean to. I did. It was not our 20th presentation at all. It depends on how you measure it. It was either our 19th, as it was the 19th Saturday evening that I've opened up a Metropolitan Virtual Playhouse reading, or it was the 22nd, as 3 of those readings had 2 plays on the same evening. But no matter how you slice it, this is the 20th presentation, and welcome. Here we are, the 20th Saturday presentation of Metropolitan Virtual Playhouse. It remains such a great pleasure that I just could not get away, and I'm glad to see you here tonight. Being online again reminds me, though, of the great pleasures of being embedded in the East Village. The East Village of Manhattan has a singular sense of belonging. In the small city where I grew up, the motto was, kind of cringingly, a place to be somebody. But in the East Village, in the middle of bustling Manhattan, that anonymous Gotham, it really is a place to be somebody, probably because it's a place to be anybody. Though it is changing every year and every day, it remains a place to meet one's neighbors and feel a part of the world of lives and livelihoods unlike any other. A place to actually be up close with a common humanity through which we all struggle through and enjoy our lives. About 20 years ago, one such person was Carlos Roman. Carlos was at the corner deli most days, and we talked most days. And I grew to learn fairly soon that he spent his nights in city shelters, if not on the street itself. Carlos was indeed homeless, and recognizing how so many of us can pass by those without homes and never learn anything about them, I realized that a theater might be a place where we could share the stories of our neighbors, not famous neighbors, not powerful neighbors, not even particularly eccentric neighbors, but neighboring neighbors. I wanted to share Carlos's story, not because it was one of hardship, though it certainly wasn't one of ease, but because it was one of life. He was a sweet, funny, and generous man, and I wished more people could know him the way that I did in the brief time we knew one another. Before he passed away, and he did, his time came just a few years later, he did find an apartment through the city where I visited him, but he still spent many afternoons around the corner from Metropolitan. My desire to share his story and those of so many neighbors was the birth of the Alphabet City Project. It was an effort to tell the stories of our neighbors. And now in this informal vacation mode, I'm going to look down and share my screen with you again. I'm going to try to. Here we go. Here, from the first iteration, is someone you may recognize, almost accidentally, as it was not the plan at the start, portraying Carlos Roman. How do I explain this project, the Alphabet City Project? It is ridiculously difficult to explain. Each year, we ask actors to go forth into the neighborhood, introduce themselves to someone who lives or works there, interview that person over several meetings, and create a solo performance based on those conversations. How do we meet them? How do we entice them to be a part? How do we choose them to participate? How do they choose us? Well, there are as many ways as there are actors and as there are neighbors in the East Village. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a philosophy, whether they know it or not. And in 20 minutes or so, we learn an inspiring story of how our neighbors put one foot in front of another, how they get from day to day. Why do we call this Alphabet City? Well, It's a loaded name, and I regret it a little bit. It is anathema to many people who've lived there for many years, either as the purview of realtors trying to make a buck off of a clever redistricting of parts of Manhattan, or for some time from drug buyers from out of town and out of the neighborhood. It refers to the avenues between Avenue A and Avenue D, of course, and it's resented by anyone who's lived there for very long. But to me at the time, it seemed like an apt way of describing the different people, like different letters forming the story of the neighborhood, and I'm so stuck on it that it has stuck with us. The Alphabet City Project, this series of interviews turned into solo performances, is one of my, if not hands down, my favorite projects. And Jared Hausman is one of my favorite performers who's ever taken it on. I believe the second time Jared took on a role in Alphabet City, he met Jeffrey Ruhalter, a fourth-generation busher from the Essex Street Market. Jeffrey was featured in articles from Bowery Boogie and LowdownNYC.com, as well as the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. We interviewed him in 2012. And there will be a little chat after the show to answer some questions that may come up, if you wish, that as usual through Zoom and through YouTube chat. But here, fair warning, I have posted in the chat, both in YouTube and Zoom, a direct link to the video that I'm about to show, because who knows, it may be that much better visible there. It may play better if you looked at it directly. But if you do choose to watch via this meeting, we'll be able to have a little conversation afterwards. So now another screen share from me, and I am pleased to introduce to you Jeffrey Ruhalter, as portrayed by Jared Hausman in The Poor Man's Butcher. Here we go.
My name is Jeffrey, and I was born in Manhattan Hospital, January 27, 1956. I am old, and I'm a butcher, as was my father. My name is Jeffrey, and I was born in Manhattan Hospital, January 27, 1956. I am old, and I'm a butcher, as was my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather. Actually goes back since a long time ago. Our store opened in 1870 in the Ruhr Valley of Germany. It was a miner's town, kind of tough place. The cow actually walked to the shop. Now, my great-grandfather, supposedly there's a story, his wife would kill the cow. Now, if it was my wife, I'd be a little concerned. Anyway, Germany was becoming slightly problematic, so they decided to get the hell out of there. And they started coming through Ellis Island around 1899. And my great-grandfather opened up the store, 188 Orchard, around 1904 and 1906. It was 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. It was a different time. And some of the men actually lived in the store, in the basement. And my grandfather every day would send 20 pounds of ground beef to a little tent city, which I believe was on Essex and Houston. And people were actually living in tents. And they would take the ground beef and they would mix it with sawdust so they could feed more people. See, people were hungry. They were starving. It was a tough time. You got off the boat, and they put you wherever they let you off. They didn't actually give you help. There weren't ways to get help. You didn't have $1 in your pocket. You had to find a place to stay. You looked for your neighborhood. Now, in January 1939, Mayor LaGuardia opened up these markets throughout the entire city. You see, food was sold on the street from push carts. And Mayor LaGuardia thought the idea of selling food from push carts was disgusting. You know, if you bought a pound, did you get a pound? Did they pay their taxes? Where did they wash their hands? Did they wash their hands? Where did they go to the bathroom? Where did they throw their garbage? You know, now it's called the Big Apple. Back then it was called the Big Onion. Many layers of filth and it all smelled bad. It was disgusting. So they moved into the marketplace. They literally lined up their push carts out the front, loaded their merchandise into the marketplace, and the city came and took away and burned all the push carts. Got rid of them. That's why you can't find any old push carts anymore. The city had them destroyed. You know, clean the streets. So anyway, my grandfather moved the store from 188 Orchard to 120 Essex. That's on Essex between Rivington and Delancey, in the market. Now, it was a poor neighborhood, and I am a poor man's butcher. The store was a poor man's store. It was like a biology class, literally. I mean, pig's feet would get in 100-pound barrels. Chicken backs, 10 cents a pound. Tongue. Pig ears, fantastic. Pig stomach, excellent. The intestines, the chitlins, delicious. Oxtail, pig's tail, jowl, the underside above the neck, right below the cheek. Cheek meat. See, food is perspective. Americans, I mean, we're pompous ass. We don't understand, we throw things away. The spinal cord, food. The cartilage, food. The marrow, you break the bone, you suck it out. Food, everything was eaten. Tripe, hogmaw is the stomach of the pig. Chitlins. I fed people. I am a poor man's butcher. Our finest steak was a chuck steak because we didn't sell steak. We sold neck bones and pig's feet and beef feet and tongue. You know, having dinner every night was a luxury. Having steak every night was ideal. So my grandfather moved the store to Essex Market, and my father joined him around 1950. He was in his teens. Now my father's brother became a doctor. And my father was a fucking wreck. He was a partier. He was the guy that just thought he was so cool and did nothing. He ended up becoming a butcher. And he hated it. He hated the job. And he always felt like a loser because his brother became a doctor and he only turned out to be a butcher. He hated the damn thing. And my grandfather treated him like shit. And my grandfather was a scumbag. You know, my father came back one day and saw my grandfather fucking some broad on the floor of the butcher store. Yeah. Grandpa was a bit of a louse. But, you know, morals were different. People were hungry. A customer would have no money. I'm a friend. Let's get together a little bit. Yeah. Grandpa was a bit of a prick. And he was abusive. My father hated him. The day my grandfather died, my father knew he was dead. Because my grandfather didn't show up for work, and my grandfather always showed up for work. My father knew he was dead. My father went to my grandfather's apartment. He saw my grandfather dead on the bed. My father crawled over my grandfather to get to the cabinet where the bills were so he could find a way to buy meat, because my grandfather taught my father nothing. He got to the cabinet, found the bills, found a way to get an extra line of credit, then called up the coroner and said, pick up the old man. Yeah. No love lost. So my father started buying and selling meat, and he used to drive to work in this Econoline van. It wasn't refrigerated. You didn't need refrigerated vans back then. The health department was just beginning. They didn't know. You just picked up the meat. You took it in a metal van. Didn't have plastic line. It was a simple metal van. And my father used to toss the meat in the back, and it would bleed. Now, believe it or not, blood eats through metal. I mean, eats it right away. So there were holes in the floor. And the wind, you'd be driving and the wind would come in and the noise, you'd hear the engine, and it would stink to high fucking heaven. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, you would walk there, you'd have to stop before you go in there because the smell is gonna fucking hit you. And I used to go with my father. He used to wake me up in the morning, Jeffrey, get up, Jeffrey, get up. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm 10 years old. And I get out of bed and I put my clothes on and I go downstairs. And now, keep in mind, if it's in the winter, it's cold. And there are holes in the floor. And that little heater didn't do a fucking thing. Because it was all opened up, there was no partition. So you got this little heater, you're sitting there freezing, your head's about to fucking explode because of the smell, and we go off. Now keep in mind it's dark out. And we're headed over the west side. And as we approach 9th Avenue, we start to see this glow. because they had lights set up. See, meat is a night business. They start at 12 o'clock at night, you know, so you have everything cut, everything done, so by 8 o'clock in the morning, you're making deliveries. Because back then, you're buying meat every day, because no one had additional space, no one had proper refrigeration. So, we headed over to the west side, you start to see the glow, and I'm starting to get excited, right, because I know what I'm about to walk into. And we go over 9th Avenue into the meatpacking district, and it is alive. I mean, there are trucks going in 14 different directions. There's no traffic control. Guys, tractor trailers, the little vans going up on the sidewalk, you know, trying to get the tractor trailers to try and unload. People are screaming, horns are honking, people are yelling. These guys are coming down with these hand trucks going left and right. It was utter fucking mayhem. I loved it. I absolutely loved the mayhem. I loved the life. I loved the exuberance. I mean, the guys were all jovial. These big guys with these big fat hands pushing these hand trucks, yelling at each other, fighting with each other. It was amazing. It was a thrill. It was absolutely a thrill. I mean, you walk into a place and you see 50 guys moving, it's like a dance. It's opera. It's ballet. And they take a cut, they pass it down, they take a cut, they pass it down, they take a cut, they pass it down. It was something to see. It was absolutely something to see. And on Saturdays, we go down to Brooklyn Terminal Market where I'd see my Uncle Paulie. There's a place called Dial Poultry. Now, Uncle Paulie was in the meat business for years. And I'd come there and he'd have for me from Dunkin' Donuts a honey glazed chocolate donut and a hot chocolate. Now, it wasn't until later that I realized that Uncle Paulie was Paul Castellano of the Castellano crime family. He was the head of the Castellano crime family. You paid money to be in business. We paid money to be in business. You see, meat was a controlled industry. For generations. Ours was a family business. We were grandfathered into the Castellano crime family. You want to be in business? You pay the fucking price. It's called paying tribute. We pay tribute. If they want a taste, give them a taste. Wet their beaks a little, you know? And we got an additional line of credit that people didn't get, so, you know, they took care of us. I remember these guys used to come in with these big bags of cash, and my father would write them a check. Yeah, Pop was laundering money. I mean, this is back in the 60s, so what's that? 50 years ago. 50 years ago. You know, our store served people for generations. 4 generations. So my great-grandfather served their great-grandfather, my grandfather served their grandfather, my father served their father, me, them. So it was not a store. It was a family. And I remember this young lady. She stayed in my store. And I knew her from when she was a kid. I was a kid. And she had 3 kids now. And I'm looking at her. And her son goes, "Mommy, are we going to have dinner tonight?" "Mommy, are we going to have dinner tonight?" This child is looking at his mother saying, "Mommy, we're going to have dinner tonight," and she's looking at me. Do you fucking understand that? Do you know what that fucking means? Did he have dinner? Of course he had dinner. Did he have lunch? He had lunch. Did he have dinner again? He had dinner again. I fed people. It was not a job, it was a fucking responsibility. You know, these people, I knew their families. You know, we had a book, and we would write their names in the book. So they come in, "Don't worry, we'll give you the food, don't worry, we'll give you credit." Give them the food, write their name in the book. Now, at the end of the month, or the second of the next month, if they hadn't paid their bill, my father would give me the page from the book. And I would have to go to their houses. And when I got to their houses, I had to say one thing. Someone came by and paid your bill, so don't worry about it. Come back to the store. And the whole thing would start again. Now, I was a neighborhood butcher, and these people came to us religiously. They shopped in our store every day. I am someone's butcher. I am a piece of antiquity kept alive. Now, our product would change when the ethnicity of our customers would change. The neighborhood would change. It was immigrants. It was all immigrants. Loads of immigrants came in. Now, my grandfather had a guy that did nothing but cut veal cutlets all fucking day long. That's what he did, his whole job. to cut veal cutlets all day. He had a barrel, and he would cut veal cutlets all day long. You know, it was the Italian neighborhood. I never sold a pound of veal because it changed. Neighborhood changed. Then in the 60s, it became black neighborhood. Now, a thing down south is to roast a whole pig's head. So we used to get in barrels of pig's heads. I mean, barrels of pig's heads. I'm sitting there as a little kid, cutting the eyes out of these pigs' heads. Not thinking anything's wrong, it's normal. Sure, I'll take the pig's head and I cut the eyes out. Sure. You know, this is how I was raised, this was customary. Then, it became a Latino neighborhood. Now, es muy importante en Nueva York que tú hablas la lengua de la gente que compra en tu tienda. I speak the language of the people that came by. And why I learned Spanish? Because deep down inside, I'm really a fucking slut. And I had a thing about these Latin women that would drive me fucking crazy. And here I am in this Latina community, and they're all dark skinned, and I got this hair and blue eyes. And, you know, the Latin men didn't treat their women all that well back then, especially the projects, so they used to come to me. And I'm this little Jewish kid from Long Island, totally enamored with these women, and I wanted their panties to hit the floor so bad, I learned the fucking language. And I used to go visit them at lunch. My father would be like, Jeffrey, you going to lunch? Why are you taking 2 chickens? Why am I taking 2 chickens? You got 2 whole chickens, you go on lunch. What the fuck is going on? Well, I bring them chickens. I got laid so much that if I never got laid again, I would still die with a smile. Unfucking believable. Now, I went off to college. I got a job as a salesman. I got married, but that was like Vietnam. You don't really want to go back there. You know, I married a good wife, but I wasn't necessarily a good husband. You know, we were young. I was a fucking wreck, and she was an intelligent, progressive woman. A good woman. But it just didn't work. I never got married again. In fact, it took me 10 years to get over it. I kind of kept myself distant. I had these relationships with these women that I knew wouldn't last long term. You know, I came from a family that divorce wasn't a word. I didn't know what divorce meant. I was a fucking wreck. And a divorce salesman doesn't sell well, so I was fired. And I went to my father and I said, I was fired. I'd like to work here. And my father says, we've been making any money over a year. We're going to close the business. So, well, hold on a minute, Dad. I'm a salesman. Let me see what I can do. So I put on a suit. I go out to the market. I take a right. And I go from business to business. And these people knew me from when I was a kid. People in the neighborhood. And I got business. Mostly settlement buildings and daycare centers. And we were back in business. Now, after working there for some time, my father says to me that he's made me a partner in the business. And I figured, wow, I'm a partner. Wow, I'm a partner. Now, my relationship with my father was somewhat volatile, because he was a prick and I was an asshole. And the twain did not meet. You know, his father treated him like shit, he treated me like shit. I don't think he knew any better. So, we're arguing one day, and he says, you know something, asshole? I never made you a partner. You're too stupid to go to a lawyer to find out. And I said, for you, I wouldn't sell a fucking slice of cheese. And I took off my suit, put on my jeans, went behind the counter, started waiting on my customers. You know, to this day, it was never Alan Rohalter and Son. He never made me a partner. There was a point of contention for us that colored our entire life together. I hate the man. And when he was finally too old and he walked away from it all, he had over $65,000 in debt that he'd accrued because he kept having to borrow money. Fuck you, Dad. You know how it became Jeffrey's Meat Market? I bought a big neon sign that said Jeffrey's Meat Market. He said, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, it's a new sign. It says Jeffrey's Meat Market." It was still his business, but for my own ego, I thought I'd buy a sign that said Jeffrey's Meat Market. He didn't give a shit. You want to put a sign? I'll put a sign. What do I give a fuck? Anyway, one day, this woman comes into the store, and she says, "I would like a piece of filet mignon." And I look at her and I say, "Do you know where the fuck you are?" And she says, "Yes, asshole. I live here." Hello. Neighborhood had changed. I didn't know. All these wealthy people started moving to the Lower East Side. It was now the place to live. You know, I am a poor man's butcher. The next day, I had filet mignon in the store. Hello, my name is Jeffrey Rohalter, and welcome to Jeffrey's Meat. We have but meager fare. In steak, we have filet mignon, porterhouse steak, New York strip, shell steak, skirt steak, flank steak, shoulder steak, cube steak, all types of pod roast, all types of roast beef, all natural beef, organic beef, Kobe beef. In lamb, we have but little bit. We have rib lamb chops, loin lamb chops, shoulder lamb chops, lamb shank, lamb breast, lamb loin, whole lamb, baby lamb, Australian, New Zealand, and American lamb. In pork, I have everything under the sun, including the pig's feet in my showcase right the fuck over there. Venison, ostrich, and wild boar roast, and lions, and tigers, and bears. Oh my. Pheasant, baby pheasant, quail, semi-boneless quail, 2 different types of boneless duck breast, 3 different types of duck. Elk, antelope, alligator, caribou. Well, not really caribou. We can't sell caribou right now because someone pissed off the Eskimos and they're not sending us a fucking pound. Emu, alligator. We have a lovely duck sausage with a pate foie gras and salted wine. Spicy buffalo sausage with chipotle chili and dried tomato cilantro. Venison sausage with blueberry and merlot wine. Wild boar sausage with cranberries. A spicy French Moroccan lamb merguez sausage, Cajun andouille. Rabbit or veal or pork with white wine and Dijon. Pheasant or chicken with hazelnut cognac. Chicken with basil and sun-dried tomatoes with pine nuts. Chicken with apple and cranberry. Chicken with, oh, I forgot that one. And I made my own sausage. So, I went from being a poor man's butcher to someone accommodating people of affluence. People not so concerned with pig's feet, more wanted a rib steak. And I was doing well. I was doing well. I was kicking in real fucking numbers. I was making a name for myself. Dinner with Jeffrey, the New York Times. Google the New York Times. Go to Jeffrey Rohalter. You'll find 4 articles about me. I did classes. I lectured. I lectured at NYU, Columbia, Brooklyn College, Sarah Lawrence. I lectured for the city of New York. You give me a podium and 500 people, I'm having a fucking blast. In dysfunctional cells. I did Jeffrey's School of Butchery. $75 a class. My classes were selling out months in advance. And then the advent of something new. The internet. Someone says, "Hey, why don't we open a supermarket on the internet and bring it to their homes?" And then Whole Foods opens up 5 blocks from my store. And lucky for me, it's the flagship store. The store is fucking gorgeous. You seen it? Gorgeous. Gorgeous. And the selection is unfucking real. The prices, well, you know, some people go at Whole Foods, other people go at Whole Paycheck. But, you know, if you shop for bargains in there, you do well, you do. They got some good deals, they really do. And I'm starting to wait around for customers to come in. So someone says to me, "You can't compete with Whole Foods. Upsell them." What do you mean? Upsell them. They sell steaks, sell better steaks. Go prime, go high end. But I couldn't keep up. I was getting killed. And I kept dropping men and dropping men and dropping men. And I'm working harder and harder and harder. And my expenses, I spent a year losing money. I was afraid to go into my store. Because you stand around waiting for customers to come in with this desperation. You know, someone comes up to your showcase. Please buy something. Please buy something. You know, I remember the day my store closed. I cleaned up my register, I paid my men. And I'm standing there with $300 in my pocket. Huge rent, nothing in the bank. And I'm just standing there. I couldn't move. I was numb. I couldn't breathe. My store closed, and I am in debt to the wrong people. I mean, I am in debt to the wrong people. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but I am in debt to the wrong people. My credit line is destroyed. My savings are gone. I'm literally destitute. I went back to my apartment and sat down with a bottle by my side. And I didn't get up for 8 months. I was standing on the corner of Delancey and Pitt at 7:15 in the morning, waiting for the liquor store to open up at 7:45, hoping the guy wouldn't be late. I'm standing there with people that live on the street. I'm waiting for the place to open up so I can get a 25-cent bottle of cheap wine. I haven't eaten in 5 days. My stomach is a wreck. I can't eat, but I can't live without cigarettes and liquor. I made a phone call and I got some help. And I haven't had a drink since September 16th, so what's that, 8 months, 9 months? I was literally waking up with a bottle of vodka in my bed. The first thing I would do is take a shot of vodka, puke up my guts, and start drinking again. That's what happened. So now I'm on my last $1,000. I'm on welfare. I'm living off $25 a week. I had the world by the balls, and I let it go. I didn't know how to solve the problem. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't handle it. So, now I'm starting again. Now I'm looking for a job. My name is Jeffrey, and I'm a butcher.
This has been The Poor Man's Butcher, performed by Jared Haldeman, based on interviews with Jeffrey Ruhalter in 2012. Jeffrey passed away from cancer in 2016. The Essex Street Meat Market, of course, still survives with current ownership. As far as we know, there is no butcher that has replaced Jeffrey, and there never will be. While Jared could not join us this evening, I can take some questions about the project. I can also refer you again and in the chats to an interesting series of articles in the lowdownnyc.com, which charts the hopes for the resurrection of Jeffrey's meats and the final giving up the ghost, as well as a lovely testament to Jeffrey in his obituary from 2016. I'm just monitoring a little bit the chats on YouTube and Zoom. And I just want to thank everyone who came to watch tonight as we presented this monologue. The Alphabet City series has gone on for 15 years. We've interviewed almost 100 people, and we do have videos of some of the performances from the past. We intend to post some of them, including Guitar Seller and Repairer, to the stars and the not-so-stars I bought a guitar from him myself, Richie Bax, motorcycle repairman Hugh Mackey, and a number of others. They will stay up on the YouTube channel in perpetuity. Someone asks the name of the writer, and I probably did not make this clear. Each Alphabet City monologue is is taken verbatim from interviews with the residents. So in this case, Jared interviewed Jeffrey Ruhalter again in 2012 several times, edited along with the help of director of that particular year's program, stage director Yvonne Opfer-Conybeare, and created the monologue out of those words. But they are all verbatim from the interviews with the subjects. Just checking the chat. One friend notes that it sheds light on stories heard from her grandparents on the Lower East Side, getting the cheapest organ meat they could afford. Thanks again for being with us, folks. I'm going to draw the meeting to a close. I will give another shout out to Jeffrey Ruhalter, of course, Jared Hausman, the actor now living in LA and a director and filmmaker, who both interviewed Jeffrey and presented the evening's performance, and Yvonne Opfer-Conybeare, who directed that particular year's stage presentations. This video will be available for some time on our YouTube channel. Do refer your friends, subscribe to the channel if you like. And finally, a thanks to all our contributors who have supported us. I'll sign off with one more little video, and that's a thank you and listing of everyone who has helped us during this project. It means the world to us, your contributions. A little bit goes a long way. Do consider supporting Metropolitan Playhouse, which you can do right on our website. For now, thanks for being with us in the beginning of August. It's Alex Rowe giving you my thanks and signing off.